here's the problem. And now I've got Keith on the line, so I'm going to have to hear about it from the two of you. The Giants are running circles around the Eagles right now. Now, I'm not going to give Keith a chance to start off talking about the Giants. We'll get to that at the end of the
well, guess what? I am. Hey, Keith, do you realize the Giants now have a higher draft pick than the Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, I think somebody slipped a Mickey in someone's drink and he gave up the sixth pick.
You guys
only
are
playing.
Oh my goodness! You make it stop, Keith.
So for those that don't know, we have Keith Pompey from the Philadelphia Inquirer on right now, and if there's anybody better to talk to the day after the trade deadline, I don't know it. So,
well,
what Keith? By the way, do you have an extra phone on the trade deadline?
Got burners and stuff.
No, it's crazy though. But let me tell you this, man. It was a bizarre day because the phone kept ringing. And normally, like, sometimes you get real focused and you have your ringer off and you just like pecking away typing. But I didn't have it, and every time I kept running to the phone, doing this and that. It was ridiculous, man. It really was.
I could barely keep up with all the rumors. First, Kyle Lowry was moving for basically the whole Sixers team. Then he wasn't moving. Then the Sixers were acquiring George Lynch. Then there were reports that George Hill. Then there were reports. I don't even know anymore. There were reports that Danny Green was on the move. Can you explain to me what happened yesterday, Keith?
Well, here's the deal with the whole Danny Green thing. In order for you to get Kyle Lowry, you had to ship Danny Green out because he makes $15 million. You weren't going to give up Tobias Harris, Joel, or Ben. So Danny had to be the piece that goes. Now, the thing is, as much as everyone wants to say once they got George Hill, the Sixers were still trying to get Kyle now. I mean, they were under the belief that, Miami wasn't going to be able to pull the trigger, and they were. So they were still trying to get Kyle. It just so happened it came down to the trade deadline that they weren't able to get him. So, that's where the whole Danny Green thing came in. Danny knew, he was told by his agent, days prior that, look, man, you're probably going to get traded, So he was expecting to get traded, and then once, because we're out west, so it's 12 o'clock. So after 12 o'clock rolled by, he was like, okay, well, now I finally get to get my championship ring and play against the Lakers,
So was that great game that he played, probably the best game he's played as a Sixer, was last night? Was it the relief that he was still going to be here? Was it the motivation he was playing against his old team when he got the ring? Is this the Danny Green that we can expect to see going into the playoffs?
I don't think that's going to be his role. Like, Danny was, he can make shots, but he was more like attacking. He was, that guy. Now, the one thing I will say is, Danny Green there's two ways you can look at it. Is Danny Green the Danny Green of like 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago? No. But, he's a good defender. Well, more so a good leader than anything, right, that you need in the locker room. Secondly, I will say this, that, there had to be some motivation there. I mean, come on, we're all human. I mean, we know, like, if someone's going to trade you and the team that already traded you, well, you're motivated to prove the team that was thinking about trading you that they made a bad move, and you're motivated to stick it to the team that traded you. You know what I mean? Like getting buckets against a team and a fan base in L.A. who thought like the guy couldn't shoot. So he's out there hitting 8 threes, and now they're all waking up this morning talking about how come he didn't do that with us, So we would be lying to ourselves if we said there wasn't any motivation.
Okay, so the one move they were able to make was George Hill and Iggy Brzdikis. I'm not going to waste any time on Iggy Brzdikis. Don't you even try to tell me that he's ever going to actually see the court. What exactly is George Hill going to bring to this team, and how much better can it make it?
I think he's going to bring, he's going to be a poor man's Kyle Lowry in a way. Kyle was going to be a starter. This guy's going to come off the bench. They're both the same age. They both can knock down shots. He's actually a better shooter than Kyle, from three. He's a good defender, and he's a pure point guard. I mean, I look at him as being the sixth man now. I look at him as being a guy who won't start, but he's going to play considerable minutes. Danny Green may take a hit. Ben Simmons is going to be off the ball a lot. I mean, I look at him now. I do think that they still need a guy who can create his own shot, a guy who can take over games. I don't look at George Hill as that guy, but you all know when you look at the Sixers, another thing that was always missing is someone who can run the offense, someone who can be a quality two-way player. Like we look at Shake Milton, he's a great scorer, but is Shake Milton a pure point guard? No. Can he defend? No. We look at Furkan and we ask the same things, and the question is no on the last two. So when you have a guy like a George Hill, he's more of a complete player who's going to help them, and especially when you take Ben Simmons off the ball.
Did they give any timeline for when we might see him on the court? I know he just kind of got the cast off. He was coming back from injury. Is there any thought about when we might actually see this team play together?
I was told that, it could be, a source said it could be sometime like next week or what have you. They haven't at the time of the trade, they didn't look at the medical, but from the people they talked to, that is one of those things that he'll be back. And then something else we got to understand when we talk about Oklahoma City, Oklahoma City was just getting guys. They had really no intention of playing guys, and what I mean by that is when they got them, they were trade trips from the moment they picked them up. And he did play in 14 games, but I feel like if he was playing like with the Sixers from day one, this wouldn't have been the surgery that he would have had. You know what I mean? I feel like he would have got it in the off season and he would have played well. But I hate to say it, they're drafting players because they want to acquire draft picks and they want to acquire assets at this particular time. So, go ahead, have your surgery. You work out in a couple of weeks, you do what you have to do, and we'll get you to another team. So that's what it was like in that instance.
I saw Oklahoma City will control the draft. They have 34 picks, 17 in the first round, 17 in the second round over the next 2 or 3 years. It's crazy, something like that. You think we'll see anything in the buyout area in terms of filling any other needs, or is this going to be the team that they go to battle with?
I think we'll see We'll see something. They talk about, like I talked about, they need a guy who can create, right? But they also need some depth. I mean, depth at the center position. I mean, yesterday you look at Dwight Howard. He was the only center on the roster, and he gets ejected after 6 minutes on the court, right? So they need to shore that up. As much as I like B-ball Paul, like Paul Reed, we still have to remember he's a rookie in the NBA, and the talent level from the G League to the NBA is a little bit better, a whole lot better. And he's a power forward, and he had to play center last night. And you look at Mike Scott, and you say to yourself, at 6'8", can Mike Scott play center? So, the Sixers need to shore that up. I don't know if this guy, Iggy that they just got, if he could be a valuable piece for them, but they do need to get some depth just in case something happens to Embiid and just in case Dwight Howard gets ejected again.
You mentioned the game last night, Dwight Howard's ejection, which seemed ridiculous. I was wondering whether you ended up with a technical foul and they were going to bring you in the game. What did I see last night with all of the technical fouls? The second quarter, while late on the East Coast, was some of the uglier basketball I've seen in a while, with all of the air balls on both ends of the court. What did you see in this game that the Sixers ended up pulling out and have continued to win despite the fact they haven't had Joel? They just got Seth Curry back. They haven't always had Ben. And yet here they are at 32-13. They've won 4 in a row again and 9-1 in their last 10.
Now here's the thing about that game. Like I'm gonna put a mulligan on both teams. I guess if I termed it right. Because here's the thing. Like you look at the Lakers, and I mean, they have 2 max players in Anthony Davis and LeBron James. So you really can't afford to go out there and get a lot of like great players. You got to have role players who play off of those two. So with them struggling, like I look at it as if like, okay, that's what you expect because they don't have their horses there. The rest of these guys are role players at best, right? And you could say the same thing about the Sixers. And the worst thing for both teams, like, because both of them were involved in the Kyle Lowry thing. So both teams, they had role player guys who did not know until like 12 o'clock that day if they were going to be on that team at all. So coming to the arena is one of those things where you're upset with the organization because you know that the coach and basically the front office people are out there saying, "Hey man, we love you and all, but we're trying to get Kyle." So you feel like a little like, "Man, I can't believe they did that to me." So all those things lead to ugly basketball. But with that being said, if you're the Sixers, if you win great or you win ugly, a win is a win, especially when you look at it and you see how the Brooklyn Nets are now third in the East. So, the Sixers are doing their part. It's just like Brooklyn isn't doing it. So when Joel gets back, that just gives you more confidence to keep doing what you got to do.
Is there any idea when Joel is going to come back? What's the state of his health right now?
I talked to a couple people. They say, it could be like no one wants to come on the record or say anything. They're just saying, oh, it could be one of the games next week. You know what I mean? Like, maybe like next Thursday or something like that. But the way that I get it, I don't know if that's like worst case scenario, best case scenario. But Thursday could be a target date. But from what I'm hearing is he has to go through a lot of hoops, so to speak, to get to that point. So we'll see. We'll see.
Keith, as a basketball fan, when you knew you had to go on this West Coast trip, I'm sure you circled the Lakers game as probably the hardest game that they were going to have on this trip. You now have Aaron Gordon, who's heading out to Denver, as well as JaVale McGee as the backup to Jokic. What are you looking forward to? Is Denver now the hardest battle on this trip?
I think it's the Clippers. Honestly, Denver is good because of the altitude, but when you look at the Clippers, we're not too far removed from when Kawhi went ahead and did what he did against the Sixers, right? When he hit that game winner. You look at Paul George too, and we look at a Sixers team that they give up a lot of points to elite guards, and I'm looking at these two. Paul George is a 2 guard this season. Kawhi is the 3. I'm looking at the Clippers as a tough matchup for the Sixers. And not only that, it's like, now I know Doc Rivers is going to be motivated, but at the same time, you think they're going to be motivated too to go up against their former coach. So, I think that that's going to be a good one. The thing about Denver is the altitude. The altitude is the thing that kills you. You don't have Joel. That's going to hurt as well, if he doesn't play. So, there's a lot of things that could happen. But believe me, don't sleep on this Clipper game. And like you said, the Lakers, if the Lakers had LeBron and AD, yeah, that would have been the toughest one. But you had to look at it and realize okay, if they beat the Knicks, they could possibly beat the next two, because Steph Curry without the Golden State Warriors without Steph Curry, man, they're not that good, right? And then, like I said, the Lakers without LeBron and AD, come on, man, whoa, you know what I mean? So you had to figure that they would have a chance to go 3-0, but I think it's about to get tougher the next two. That's why everyone's saying, I hope they could split. I just hope they could split.
Well, to me, the biggest problem is your only senator appears to be Dwight Howard, and whether the first technical foul should have happened or not, Doc Rivers came out pretty strong, saying that Dwight Howard kind of didn't do the right thing. I'm kind of trying to be diplomatic about it. Is the biggest difference between Doc Rivers and Brett Brown the fact that Doc Rivers is able to get these guys to do what they need to do and kind of keep them in line, as opposed to Brett Brown, who kind of just let everybody kind of do their own thing and didn't really speak up?
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm tired of talking about Brett Brown. Because it's we could. And I'm not knocking you for that question, but it's that. I think Doc Rivers is a better coach. I mean, let's keep it real. I think he's a better coach, and I also, I mean, like it's easy. Yeah, Doc Rivers will tell it like it is. Like, Brett Brown would be the type of guy who like it's one of those things where it's like, all right, I'm gonna keep this in house. I'm not gonna discipline the guy. So like if Ben Simmons didn't shoot the ball or Ben Simmons didn't do something, he would make it seem like you're crazy for asking a question, and he would like totally support the player. Well, what Doc does is as soon as, Dwight did what he did, he basically called them both clowns, right? He said they were clowns, both of them. And then he talked about like, Dwight, you're the only center. That would not have happened with Brett Brown, it would not have. And, but I think that when you look at it, the big difference is it's like he's just a better coach. I mean, Doc Rivers, and this isn't a knock against Brett Brown. I mean, like when I first came on this beat 8 years ago, there were 3 coaches who were like elite coaches at that time. Greg Popovich and Doc Rivers, right? And the coach of the New York Knicks. They were the 3 coaches that everyone talked about. The 3. I'm talking about the guy there. What's his name? The Knicks now. What's his name? His name escapes me. But they were the 3. Tom Thibodeau. They were the 3 coaches that everyone talked about. And you look at it, and Popovich and Doc Rivers are both in the top 10 of coaching wins. They're both going to be Hall of Fame coaches. So when we talk about that, and then let's keep it real now. This was Brett Brown's first job as a coach, and then he got these elite guys. Doc Rivers, this is his 4th team. He won a championship. Popovich won a championship. So it's like he's just not on that level as them. It's kind of like it's kind of like a Michigan guy, when you got an Ohio State coach.
Hey,
Keith, you can knock Jeff anytime you want. We do it all the time on the show anyway. So
last week you got knocked off by technology. You couldn't get knocked off like a minute before you said that.
Keith, have a great rest of your travels on the West Coast. We look forward to following you at Pompey on Sixers, listening to the podcast, catching you in the Inquirer. Always appreciate getting to catch up with you. Safe travels, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, fellas, and go Michigan.